Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Right Click, hosted by Byrdman, and today we are talking about a kind of a range of things. I want to start off with just some little updates. I'm going to do something a little different, break the format I normally do, to some degree. We're still going to get into some controversy, into some hot and heavy stuff, but one thing I do want to let you guys know is that this is actually going to be changing a little bit. The studio is getting an update, so hopefully in either the next episode, probably not, probably the episode after next, all of this is going to look a lot different. We're going to get a bit of an upgrade, so I'm excited to pass that on. However, something I am personally extremely excited about is that tomorrow, as of the time of recording, the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6 early access beta comes out, and they are this is actually kind of neat for me for a couple of reasons. One, I don't have to say how much I've always enjoyed playing Call of Duty. This is, it's just another iteration. I'm not dumb enough to think that this is some groundbreaking thing. That being said, they have kind of altered the formula in which they do betas. I'm hoping to get some footage, maybe even live stream a little bit, but it's starting tomorrow at noon Central, and it's actually going until about noon Central the following Wednesday, which I don't really ever recall it going that long. But the cool thing is the open beta following the early access beta is the Friday after the Wednesday it closes. So we have like a day and a half lull before we get another open beta that I believe goes until the following Wednesday. So we have, a good 10-ish days, give or take, to play this beta, and I'm really wanting to put out some videos and stuff on this. I've had a change in some tech I have here. I've been wanting to do, as I've mentioned, this video, this kind of supercut video of my trip to Dallas, or to Texas, and the trip to COD Champs and all of that. I think that'd be a really interesting video to make. I think it'd be really fun for people to be able to see, especially those who are not on the pulse of esports, to be able to see what it's like how many people are actually, how many people came, and the environment and all that. Biggest problem I've run into is that I shot this on some equipment that I don't have anymore, so I've had to transfer some videos and stuff, and it's kind of been a bit of a pain. I think I've got a good idea of how to handle it now, but still, it's delayed me more than I wanted, and let's face it, life has just been... Well, life. It's like my dad always said, life is what happens when you're busy making plans. But like I said, I just wanted to update on some of this because there's just some stuff in the blender that's kind of cooking up right now that I'm excited to talk about, and I'm excited to show you guys. However, we got to get there first. So just kind of a little bit of a teaser. I'm really excited about how this is going to change. You're going to have a change of backdrop, a change of audio and stuff as well. And little teaser here. Last thing I will tell before we hop into this whole to the whole controversy of what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be starting a new addendum. Is that the right word? Something else. I'm attaching something else to Right Click. It's going to be a bit of a different format. It's going to be every now and then. I'm very excited for it. I'm not going to spoil too much, but it's going to be very interesting, and I'm hoping it'll be around the same time as we have the change to the studio. I don't know for sure yet, but I think you're going to like this. You're going to see more than just me on here, and that's the last little hint I will give. But let's start getting into stuff. First of all, like I mentioned, the Black Ops 6 beta starts tomorrow, and this is on Twitter. Go follow me at @thebirdman_. Anyways, shameless plug. All the early access stuff is going on right now, and there's a bunch of stuff, being given out, lots of beta codes, all this kind of stuff. And you can see here what the data is for this early access. And point being, this is what I was talking about. I'm going to be playing this a fair bit. But here's where I actually want to transition into what this episode's topic is about, because we always talk about something and drill down in it. And there is a reason for me to piggyback off of talking about Call of Duty and switching gears like this. Okay. As you know, I love Call of Duty more than just about anything else. Except for Star Wars. I have been a Star Wars fan for as long as I can remember. Borderline obsessive. Star Wars and COD were kind of my two most obsessive things as far as media goes. I frankly, I adore the entirety of the Star Wars universe. I always have. And there's a lot to be unpacked when it comes to Star Wars. You know, a lot of people just watch the movies and call it even, and right on. That's cool. No judgment from me. But the one thing I will say is Star Wars has a lot of extended content. You know, you've got the Clone Wars show that ran for years, Star Wars Rebels, the other animated series. The list goes on and on, even stuff that you can read. I've read some of the books and stuff like that. All very interesting. Some of it not canon, some of it canon. And you know, there's been a lot of controversy over the last, roundabout decade or so. My years might be a little bit off, but around the time they released episode 7 is when the controversy really ramped up. You know, people's biggest argument before that was episodes 1, 2, and 3 were just crappy acting, crappy storylines, and I can argue that both sides. I love them, but I have a bit of nostalgia and bias in that. But that is... when 7 came out is when things really started to change for people's perception of Star Wars. And frankly, rightfully so. I'm one of those that I'm a little belligerent in this. Perhaps that is the wrong outlook, but it's something I'm very passionate about to the same degree as Call of Duty. So I critique, but not for the sake of critiquing, but for the sake of passion. And it's not to tear it down, but 7, 8, and 9, I don't personally consider to be canonical. I don't. Especially when it came out that, you know, Rian Johnson was handed the script from George Lucas that he had, you know, the stories and everything that he had written for the extension of 7, 8, and 9. And he just threw it in the trash. I mean, this is public knowledge. Like, you can go find this. And that was really, I found that out probably after 8 came out, and that for me was what killed it. I was like, okay, the buck has to stop somewhere. And I thoroughly enjoy some of the other stuff. But then you get into the TV series, and it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same spiel. Like, you know, it's turned into a cash grab, and say what you will, there is a new generation of Star Wars fans that is not the old generation of Star Wars fans. And I am not making, you know, new blood, old head type argument here. That's not what I'm getting after. I will say that objectively, Star Wars has kind of lost its way. I think the acquisition by Disney is really what was the final twist of the knife, in my opinion. Feel free to argue that. I mean, that's fine. This is, again, just my opinion. But even still, knowing I would hate it, that's not true. That's actually not true. That's not a fair statement. Even regardless of what I expected, I would still watch some of this new stuff. I'd watch all of this new stuff and hope for the best, knowing that the people they bring into it, knowing that the things that they're discussing have nothing to do with Star Wars. And not to turn this into an episode about The Acolyte, which just got canceled. I think The Acolyte was the straw that broke the camel's back. Because I couldn't make it past, like, what was it, episode 2, like the first 15 minutes, episode 2 or 3, when they started doing the satanic witch ritual thing. I was like, okay, they're clearly making this for an audience that isn't the people that grew up on the original trilogy or the episodes 1, 2, and 3. That's really what I grew up on. You know, the Clone Wars shows, the old, you know, Battlefronts and stuff like that. I loved all that stuff, but these new games and new movies and new series clearly are not made and marketed for me, and I'm very aware of that. And here's the thing, I'm actually okay with that. However, it has to be said to some degree that we have kind of lost the fervor and the passion behind Star Wars. And I think we for a brief moment in time, we saw what could be from a group of passionate people that came down the descended line, let's say, of George Lucas. And of course, I'm talking about Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. I still think this first season of Mandalorian was one of the best of Star Wars. I mean, it was phenomenally written. It was intriguing. If you've watched it, you know it. If you haven't, you should. That first season was fantastic. But this brings me to my overarching point. It's lost its way. And yes, of course, I don't think it's being made for people like me. And I think that's pretty much fully known at this point. But it's not even that hangs in the balance of what I'm getting at. It's uninspired. It is now woefully uninspired. And what happens when that crosses the bridge of video games is when we get something like the new Star Wars Outlaws. And Star Wars Outlaws somehow, forgive me for being introspective and just kind of sullen, somehow for me, Star Wars Outlaws has completely, it has been the final twist of the dagger for me, for Star Wars. And I can't believe I'm saying that. Because on paper, this should be everything. I mean, and I mean that. It's an open world Star Wars game where you have free autonomy to go and do things. Some of my favorite multiplayer or single player games are like that. Ghost of Tsushima is one of my favorites. Red Dead Redemption 2, one of my favorites, because I can go and do things autonomously. I don't have to be, nobody has to hold my hand. I can go do things. I can explore a beautiful world, fall in love with the storyline and the characters and all that. And on paper, that's what this is. On paper, it's about a outlaw smuggler. It's basically a female Han Solo. No Sith. You're not a Sith. You're not a Jedi. You don't have a lightsaber. And a lot of people are like, well, why would I want to do this then? And honestly, I get that mentality. I really do, because that's what makes Star Wars very enticing, right? The lightsabers, of course. But I was actually really excited about this concept because it was an open world. Okay, say what you want about the whole strong female character being forced down your throat thing. Either way, to me, it was a new take on something that we haven't gotten in this particular media before, i.e. video games. And the thing that I keep saying, and the thing that keeps getting me and grinding my gears the most, is on paper, this should be fantastic. I mean, they were promising seamless takeoff and interaction into outer space, from a planet, right? And then jumping to light speed to get to a new planet. And it all be seamless, and you go down and you land and all that. And like, that's, to me, that sounds fantastic. I don't have a single problem with that. And I thought the idea of being a smuggler and all of this and being an outlaw and being chased around, like, I think that's really cool. And I thought the female Han Solo aspect of it was a pretty neat concept. But then the early access came out. And to get early access to the game, you had to get the big deluxe bundle. And for those unaware, the deluxe bundle, it's $110. And now, this game is normally $70. Most games, when they come out, are $70. That is just the era that we're in. Now, say what you will about having games prices gone up. Yeah, sure. Okay. But $110 is a steep price for a video game. And it's early access, and you pay for that because you get it however early. And that, to be honest, that's awesome. If you really want to support the game, the developers, and get it early and get all this extra bonus content, I got no problem with that. I think that's awesome. But this game launched and people went, okay, there's nothing here. I am so, is dejected the right word? I'm going with that. I'm so dejected in the way that Star Wars has been spat on. There's a lot of controversy in this game. Not even political, man. It's not even political. A lot of people make the comment about, why are they sticking the strong female character mantra at us? And like, yeah, I get it. But also, that's the least of this game's issues. this game came out and people started playing it and realized that, yes, the world itself visually is gorgeous, and it is an immersive, you are in a Star Wars universe look. And that right there is what almost made me go full bore into it. But it's riddled with bugs. It's riddled with mechanisms that are forced on you in this game that I cannot understand why these decisions by a company as big as Ubisoft were made. And I think this is kind of where we make the loop, because this is a Ubisoft game. And for those of you that recall one of my first episodes talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows and all of the brain dead decisions they're making, it's a Ubisoft game. This is an article from Forbes. This is an opinion piece from Forbes. It's by a gentleman named Paul Tassi. And I gotta tell you, I actually really like the way he broke this down, because he just did this very simple article of the good and the bad. And it's literally titled The Good and Lots of Bad of Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I apologize for the screen being offset. I don't know why they did that. But anyways, for those of you that listen and don't watch, totally okay, totally get it. I'll read this out to you, because this is so disappointing, man. I'm genuinely disappointed, because this is the antithesis of what we've been saying about the collapse of Star Wars. So this is what he says. Reviews have come in for Star Wars Outlaws, and while they're generally pretty good, I noticed that a few were very, very bad. Now, after playing the game for a while myself, I know which category I'm in, and I don't think I'm playing more as a result. Star Wars Outlaws is the first truly open Star Wars game, but it does not take advantage of that in the ways that it needs to, and as such, feels dated and clunky in a number of ways. I did not get far enough to comment on the full weight of the story, but here's what I've experienced so far. I just want to put this in real quick. His comment did not get far enough. Normally, I would look at that as a red flag to an article. I am seeing that so commonly and so frequently with Reddit comments, Twitter posts, Facebook. I mean, everywhere. I'm seeing people go, okay, this game is not worth playing. I don't want to play this at all. They get 8, 10 some odd hours into it, and then it just, the monotony sets in. So, with that, the bad. Point 1. Way too much stealth. While I understood that you were playing as a scoundrel and thief and outlaws, I did not realize the game would be this heavily reliant on stealth at almost every turn. First, the stealth isn't good compared to other stealth games. There's little more to do than sneak around boxes, hitting square, using a stun gun once in a while, or once on a very long recharge, or sending your pet to distract enemies while you get around them or take them down. It's extremely bare bones for something that is jammed into many encounters, and again, I don't think this game was clear on the fact that it was going to be like this in its marketing. You are certainly not Han Solo, that's for sure. That, I'm going to break in, that's what really stuck with me on this article. Because this guy had the same perception as me and the majority of people in the pre-release content had, is that this was an open world. You get to do things as you want to do them and handle it as you want to handle it. And instead, the one comment that I keep seeing over and over and over again is that this is a full game of Spider-Man Mary Jane missions. For those of you that are not familiar with what I'm talking about, within the last several years, they put out a next generation of Spider-Man games. And let me make this clear. Those Spider-Man games are freaking phenomenal. They are genuinely fun games. You get to swing. You get to do things. Like, you get to be Spider-Man in New York City. I don't know how to tell you this, but it's freaking awesome. Like, it really is. I mean, they replicated New York, and you get to travel it freely as Spider-Man. Okay, great. But the one stickler that everybody had with those games is, specifically the first one, is the Mary Jane missions, and they're stealth missions. Basically, she gets involved in something she shouldn't because she knows Peter, and then she's having to sneak her way around because that's the game's way of breaking up the main main gameplay. It's like a bridge in a song. Is basically the best way I can describe it. Key to the story, absolutely, but in a way that's very forced. And because she does not have powers, what does she have to do? She has to sneak around. At face value, like, no, I don't want to do that. I didn't want to do it when I played it. Even the first time, I definitely don't want to go back and play it. But I understood I understood the reality of why it was there. Thankfully, it was very short, all things considered, especially in a game that you could pump dozens of hours into. However, people hated that because it was very boring. There wasn't any gameplay loop. You just stayed crouched, stayed behind boxes and hope you didn't get seen. And that was it. And this is what I keep seeing, is the stealth in Outlaws is the only real gameplay loop that they have. They don't want you to go and run and gun. They don't want you to go and get creative. You have your little pet to do a distraction, or you can do a stun with an extremely long recharge, or you just grin and bear it. And I think it was Game Ranks that made a video about it. I think it was the before you buy video. And they were literally talking about how this game is an interesting take on stealth at the start. It's like, okay, it's fairly bare bones, but it has a purpose. And then they said around the 8 to 10 hour mark is when it's like, oh, that's all you do. And it really doesn't change. That's awful. Okay, so that's your main gameplay loop. It's bare bones, it's boring, and it doesn't have any variety. Okay. Moving on. With that stealth, you have insta-fail stealth. As this guy, Paul, in this Forbes article says, there are even some sections where stealth is straight up insta-fail like it's 2005. Sometimes this is when you're seen, sometimes it's when an alarm is raised. But in these larger zones, it's essentially impossible to track down an alarm raiser, and unlike Far Cry, where you might just fight off reinforcements, here you will often just auto-fail the mission, and with bad checkpointing, this can often send you way back. Getting caught in an enemy part of town, for instance, may get you thrown out at a totally different entrance than the one you came in, and getting back is enormously annoying. So they built this gameplay loop and then didn't polish it. They didn't give it any substance. They didn't give it any weight. And they forced you and stuck you with it. So what happens when you're not in the stealth and you just want to do normal combat? He goes on. Combat is middling. I am fine not being a Jedi. I'm actually glad not to be a Jedi for once. But the shooting here, which you can use when you break stealth or in a sometimes, is just mediocre. The game has the Division bullet sponge problems with many enemies. Which actually, he does point out here, makes sense. It was made by the same studio that made the Division. Moving on. The strangest decision was to have Kay, the main character, use a pistol, and pistol only with a few different mods, for the entire game. Any other weapon you pick up is temporary and will be lost when you essentially do anything. Leave a zone, perform an action, get on your bike, anything. You drop it. So you're shooting a pistol for 90% of this game when you were not doing takedowns behind boxes, which... little add-on here, the takedowns in this game have been making this game a meme because it's complete nonsense. It's joke. It doesn't make sense at all, even in the slightest. Moving on. Speeder bikes. Lots of bizarre decisions made here where the thing is way too fragile to go down most cliffs, so you're dying or blowing up frequently. But the weirdest thing is that you will often be chased down by enemies firing at you on their speeders, and you cannot fire back. There's literally no fire a gun while riding a speeder system except for getting hit enough to charge up your adrenaline meter to do your quote-unquote dead-eye attack, which genuinely feels like something they forgot to do, as it makes no sense. Unbelievable. Dated character modeling. As I'll say in the good section, the environments often look gorgeous, but outside of cutscenes, the character modeling in this game is terrible, and it looks exceptionally dated. Talking to NPCs feels like it hasn't evolved since 5 Assassin's Creeds ago, and they often look like styrofoam mannequins. And man, personally, jumping in here, I've seen that in just about every gameplay video that I've seen. Going on, no, every game does not need the Last of Us level of detail and mocap, but this is a very, very bad and jarring and poor for a story-driven game. Okay, Moving on. Lockpicking. The worst minigame I've ever seen. I turned it off instantly. Horrible. Even worse is you're often meant to do it in stealth sections repeatedly, as enemies will continue to patrol as you fiddle with it. No thank you. Moving on to the good. A living Star Wars world. Outlaws does feel quote-unquote alive, like you're existing in a real Star Wars world, especially in the population-dense parts of the map. I think the attention to detail here is excellent, and the visuals attached to that are top-notch. Again, outside of actual people. They did a stunning job with a lot of this here. Moving on, Kay and Nyx. I like them. I enjoy Kay as a character, the main character, and I think she would be a fun scoundrel if I did not heavily dislike almost all the gameplay in the game. She deserved better. I like Nyx too. He's the little pet that you have that follows you. And him jumping on a guy's face so you can punch him out did not get old. Yeah, sorry, that's it. That's all I've got. I'm definitely not as far as reviewers, and this is not a review with a score, as I don't score games I don't finish. But everything I'm reading is telling me that the core problems I have with the game will not go away, and in some instances, get worse. As much as I'd like to see the rest of Kay's story, I'm not enjoying essentially anything about how the game actually plays, and I'm not going to subject myself to more. This is the grand point, right? Passionless Star Wars has created this nonsense that we're seeing in now every form of media. And that's what I'm getting at. And I'm gonna wrap it up with this last tidbit. There was an email sent out yesterday, technically 2 days ago. And this is what it says. Because this game just came out. I believe, just came out. Anyone else get an email stating to update and start a new save? Quote, to best experience the Outer Rim, we rolled out maintenance to make sure everyone is playing the latest version of the game. As one of the players affected who had access to an older version of the game, we are aware you might be encountering some issues after this recent patch. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Breaking in here, mind you, this is an email from the developers to those who bought the early access, the $110 early access. Going on in this email, to solve this issue, please make sure you're playing on version 1.00.002. Anyways, here's how to check your version. From the game tile, select options, go to information. On the version line, locate the version number. Once you've confirmed you have the latest version, please start a new save to fully enjoy Star Wars Outlaws as our team intended. If you continue on a prior save, you will unfortunately face issues and progression blockers. Thank you for your understanding and continued support. If you run into any other issues, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are so far gone with Star Wars that the people who paid $110 to play the game early to start their experience and get ahead of the curve and enjoy it for longer and earlier and paid for that, mind you. I'm going to say it over and over again. Not $70, but $110 was told that because of this game releasing in such an awful state, that to move forward and even play the game any further, you have to delete your save and start all over again. People with tens of hours doing this, having to do this all over again, completely erasing the reason, the incentive for spending $110. This game is so broken. Made with a big void where passion should be, that they had to put out a patch for the launch of the game that told, hey, all the people that spent $110 or $130 if you wanted the gold edition, that you have to delete it and start over again. And this is my biggest problem, because this is indicative of where Star Wars is. This is indicative of where Star Wars is going. And you go and read about this, and it's full of forum posts of people saying, yep, I'm not going to be playing this game anymore. Not sure I want to start a new game after already being 8, 10 hours into the game, 20 hours into the game. I'm not happy about it. I'm looking at a Reddit post right now, and all of the comments are them just saying, "Can I get a refund? Because this is ridiculous." I right here. Yes, and I'm disgusted. I paid $110 and played all night, 12-hour stretch. This is how Ubisoft thanks us. I hope that one day Disney, Lucasfilms, this whole nonsense merger will eventually start listening to us. Because as somebody who loves this, this is the first piece of Star Wars content and media that I just refuse to buy. I watched the early access. I watched people playing the game. If the game is so apparently flawed that you can't even make it look good, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. I mean, I don't. And so I can't. I am heartbroken by the passionless development, creation, and story writing of Star Wars across the board. And now, like I mentioned before, we got our final straw that broke the camel's back, and it's on video games. This is why I tell you, put your money where it matters, right? Like, Black Myth Wukong is a game worth buying from just people who are passionate to develop a game. End of discussion. Literally, end of discussion. It's been mismanaged. Call of Duty has been mismanaged and has lost all meaning. End of discussion. It's just the truth. And that hurts to say because I love Star Wars. Star Wars, I hope that Call of Duty doesn't go down the same path because those are the two things, right? But anyways, I am hoping that they are able to push patches out to this game. I think this game is probably worth it on like a $20, if it goes on sale for like $20, I'd pay $20 to experience the world. That's the one thing I keep seeing is that it actually feels like you're in a Star Wars universe. But past that, I don't see a point in buying it. I just can't justify that on any metric. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how little money you make. Some things are just not worth spending the money on. And I'm going to leave it at that because it's a reflection on where Star Wars is across all media. And it's sad. But I'm going to leave it at that. Like I said before, we got some cool stuff coming up. I'm really excited to show you some of these things that we're going to be doing here soon. Some of the things I'm going to be doing here soon personally for Right Click and some of these really neat things that we've got coming up because it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think people are really going to tune into it and really enjoy it. I think it's going to be a great merger and a great example of what I've talked about of merging generations, bridging that gap with video games. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. Again, my name is Byrdman. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Come back next week. We're going to be doing some neat stuff with some of these games and media and movies and all this stuff that's coming out. So with that being said, thank you all for watching. Tune in next time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.